Corey Smith, Race, Class, Access, Gender, and Equity, Module 5. I chose 2 articles, one from Sumay Lieberman, she's an inclusion leadership expert, and the one from weatherhead.case.edu. It had some very good technical information as well. You can click on either one of these links and check both of those out. To summarize them, one important thing is that you should get to know everybody, regardless of their position in your company, regardless of what gender they may be, regardless of what race they may be. If they're the guy right under you, or the guy that sweeps the floor, or the lady who runs the front desk, or the guy who runs the front desk, or the copy machine person, or whoever it may be, even if they're not employed directly by your company but a contractor, if they're going to be in your building, on your campus, or whatever it is, you need to get to know who they are. You need to make sure they understand the culture of what you're trying to do. You need to make sure that they understand who you are, and you need to understand who they are. You don't have to like each other, but you definitely need to get to know each other. Doesn't need to wait till an emergency. You don't need to wait till they need or you need something from them. You need to get to know as many people as you can. It would be a process, especially if you're a new leader coming in from the outside, but you still got to do it. That way everybody understands that they're important. Take responsibility for all aspects of the organization. That one hit me really hard. And the example one of the articles gave was that a museum curator was an inclusive leader, but he had a situation where a security guard who was a contracted position had reprimanded 2 museum goers for holding hands. They happened to be of the same sex, and that was not a vision of the museum nor the leadership. The leader contacted his company, explained to them what they wanted, what they needed, the culture they were trying to set forth, and they let the museum guard go and made sure the contracting company understand they needed somebody in that position that was going to push the culture forward. I don't think I could have let the guard go. I think I could have talked to him about it. That seemed pretty harsh to do it on the very first time. And that's the part about holding people accountable, and including you. You don't get to just go do whatever. You must hold yourself accountable to be able to hold others accountable. If you don't hold yourself accountable, how in the world can you hold anybody else accountable? You have to do what you say and say what you mean. Be real. One of the articles mentions that you can't talk about work-life balance and then get angry when somebody doesn't want to pull 12 hours to get a job done. Unless it's an emergency, of course, but you get what I'm saying. You can't preach to somebody about how they need to be fair and be kind, and the next time they see you, you're being very rude or very demeaning to another person. You can't do that. You must model and be real. You got to embrace individual talent. I really like that one. You can't expect everybody to be like you. One of the articles mentions where women continue to get passed over in a company, and the guy in the position kept saying, well, they're not pushing the envelope enough, and they would lose these women in that field to other companies, and they would lose good people. And basically the guy finally figured out, at the expense of losing a lot of people, that they don't have to think just like him. They don't have to have the same ideas. They don't have to be a clone. You got to take people for what they can do and what they do well. But another piece in the article had mentioned that you don't take the people that's a perfect student from the biggest school with a 4.0, because those people may not be the fit. You have to look at the whole person when you're hiring. You have to recognize that person's strengths and that person's weaknesses. And even in that situation, the next thing I have here is inclusive leaders admit when they could be wrong, and they admit when somebody else could be right. That goes back to the assignment about leadership without ego. I've worked for an administrator before that had the largest ego I've ever seen in my life. And I've been around basketball players and musicians. Those people have egos, and this lady blew everybody out of the water. wasn't good for anybody. She definitely was not an inclusive leader. How can school administrators apply some of these rules? I think one thing they can do is take an interest in new teachers, not just welcome them to the school and toss them out and let somebody else take care of them. I think you got to check in on them. I think you got to make sure they're doing okay. Um, I have to admit that the principal now at my school, I think she does a very good job of this. Anytime she sees me, she asks me how things are going. Not just always at work either. She asks me personally, because when I first moved to this school and I came up to do some paperwork, I took my kids up there, and I got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. My daughter at the time was in a car seat, and my son was just kind of, he was 2, and he was not talking and shy. And now, if I have a brief second to bring them up there, and everybody likes to see them grow, they just really take a great interest in my family. But other times, she does take an interest in what's going on at work. Do you need anything? Can I help you with anything? Is everything going okay? And I think that's a great thing. And she's taken a great interest in me, but I've been in other places where nobody took an interest in me at all other than one of my coworkers. Ensuring that all departments get what they need. Currently in Tennessee, the 10 ready test is the big deal. And the big tested subjects are math and English. Those departments get a little extra. And I think that's fine because they're the ones being tested extra. But I've heard and seen of other schools and other school districts where people felt like their department should get the same thing as a tested subject. An example, an art department felt like they should get the same extra prep time that maybe, or the same PLC times that English teachers got, maybe 2 in a week rather than just the 1. And I think they didn't need that. They're not a tested subject; they're a fine art. Not that it's not important. It's very, very important. But now in our high stakes time, being inclusive, you got to make sure that people are getting what they need. You can't just make everybody the same. Be fair, and that piggybacks on my last slide. Being fair doesn't mean everybody gets the same thing, because everybody's not the same. Not many people's personalities are exactly the same, but they're very similar. But then you've got a whole other group of people who are different night and day to each other. And you can't treat those people the same. We've all known students that you had to get a little stern with to get your point across. You've also known other students that all you got to do is look at them pretty hard, and that gets your point across. If you were to get stern with them like you did another student, you might make that student cry, and you'd probably have a parent on your back. Not everybody's the same. Pat Summitt, who just recently passed away, she's a famous Tennessean, and she had said in numerous interviews that I do not treat every one of my girls the same because they're each individuals. And I think her leadership stands the test of time from what everybody said about her, all of her successes in basketball, what other coaches said about her, and the respect they have. So I think that's a good example. Be fair. Give people what they need. Don't give everybody the same thing. You got to allow teachers to do things that they know that work. I've seen it where new teachers come in, they have great ideas, but people just shut them down. And that goes back to the summary of one of the articles. People have different talents. You've got to let them bring their talents. They could have a different cultural perspective. They could have a different perspective just simply by being a different gender. I've noticed now that a lot of PE classes in certain schools are being split up, boys and girls. I never had that. Maybe that's a common thing. And you've always got a female teacher teaching the females and a male teacher teaching the males. To me, I think that does a disservice. They could have both. There's nothing wrong with a female PE teacher teaching a group of males. Here in Tennessee, a few years ago, we had a female basketball coach a boys team to a state championship. People say that couldn't have been done. Well, she did it. She did a really good job of it, too. And I coached against her when she was a middle school coach. She was really good. So you got to let people do what they know works. I think that would be a great thing to do. A challenge, you're never going to make everybody happy. you probably stumble along the way trying to make everybody happy. Um, I think a lot of leaders get in, they want to make people happy, and they make inclusivity. The idea of being inclusive comes with everybody's got to be happy. Well, that's a really, really hard thing to do, and you'll really, really trip yourself up. I think it's a very hard thing to do, and it's really an unrealistic goal. Another challenge is fighting preconceived notions. Um, Depending on your position, you're gonna have people who already have a preconceived mindset about you because of your gender, your size, even your physical appearance. I'm a large guy. I'm about 6'4". I weigh about 320 pounds. As you can see, I'm bald. I mean, I got a little bit of a goatee. I almost look like a biker. So when I walk in, people get this preconceived notion that I'm this really, really tough, quiet, guy. And then I don't do anything to my personality doesn't do much to fight against that preconceived notion. But it takes me time to break down people's walls. That's going to happen when I become an admin at some point in my career. Missed opportunities. There's going to be some situation where you make a decision, and with that decision, you're trying to be inclusive, whether it means promoting uh, a person who deserves it, or promoting a person um, who needs to be in that position because of their race, because of their gender. I mean, the email that I got asking me if I wanted to accept the position had two stipulations. They said, one, we need more males in our special ed department, and two, you are a basketball coach. So these are things that we would like to hire you on. And I thought that was kind of strange. But after taking this class, I understand what they were meaning, what they were trying to do. Traditionally, special ed would be a lot of females, and they need, the male aspect in there in certain situations. Um, there were, out of 9 teachers in the special ed department this past year, there were 3 males. And 2 of those guys left, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be the only guy left or not. Can't hire people if they don't apply, but I think doing the inclusive leadership model is what helped me get this particular job. Oh, sorry, going back to missed opportunities. You may miss an opportunity trying to do the inclusive thing, and that's going to be a challenge sometimes. Staying steady and making tough decisions. Again, just like making everybody happy, keeping consistent and making the tough decision in spite of what's going on around you, what other people are thinking. That's always a challenge regardless. But when you're being inclusive, and let's say small school districts here in Tennessee tend to have a lot of males in leadership positions. They also tend to have a lot of coaches in leadership positions. Breaking that mold and making a tough decision can really, really be hard. Now, here in Memphis, it's a bigger place, different story. When I worked for the federal government, they made a point to promote women to admin. There were 15 schools at one point in the peninsula of Korea when we lived overseas. 13 out of the 15 schools had female principals. But making a tough decision, picking somebody that might not be favorable, is a really, really hard thing to do, and that's always a challenge. I really enjoyed this assignment. I really enjoyed this class. I think it opened my eyes to a lot of things. It's definitely going to help me be a better basketball coach from some of the things I've thought about here. And I hope everybody else got a lot out of it as much as I did. I hope you like my presentation. Thank you.